Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to log on and attend this morning's webinar. My name is Emily Cornelius. I am the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here at Vigorate. Before I pass the webinar over to today's presenter, I just want to remind everyone that if at any time throughout the webinar you have any questions or anything, please feel free to type them into the GoToWebinar question box on the side of the screen, or you can also tweet us at Vigorate Digital. And don't forget #DemonstrateWebinar. We'll begin answering questions at the end of the webinar, and any questions we don't get to today, we will be answering later on our LinkedIn page. So before we get into the big data talk, I just want to briefly mention our next webinar in the Demonstrate series. It will take place on May 22nd at 11 a.m. This webinar will be all about Facebook contests and engagement. We will be welcoming Vigorate's own Michael Doe and Duncan Sinclair to speak on how Facebook contests can increase engagement, brand awareness, and overall sales. For more information about this upcoming webinar, you can register for our Demonstrate webinar notifications on our website at Vigorate Digital. So today we are welcoming David Kim, a partner at Massive Insights, to provide his expertise on insights on big data. Vigorate seeks to consistently bring the best talents and thought leaders to our clients. As such, we have recently partnered with Massive Insights to ensure our clients have enhanced capabilities to increase revenue and ROI through sophisticated data tracking and advanced analytics. We're excited to introduce you to David for this webinar and in future initiatives. So David is a senior marketing executive with over 14 years experience in CRM strategy, data strategy, and advanced analytics. David has vast expertise in leading customer segmentation strategies, driving predictive models, architecting campaign targeting and test designs, enhancing data management and data capturing strategies, and creating marketing communication plans and financial forecasts for leading brands. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to David.
Thanks so much, Emily. We're very excited about our new partnership with Vigorate, and we absolutely believe that every company can benefit from data and analytics solutions and are thrilled to help out where we can. I'm just going to show my screen. Give me one moment, please. So I hope everyone can see the screen. We'll jump right in, and it wouldn't be a presentation from someone who has data analytics experience without some warnings or caveats. There are some shock hazards, some dangers of exposure, some minor caveats here. And I just want to emphasize the last danger. Really, if you're looking for technical details, we'd certainly require an extended session to drill down on that front. Perhaps if there is interest in the future, we could schedule something to address the technical aspects of big data in more depth. Now that we have the warnings out of the way, let's look at big data. So I wanted to start off with some basic questions I personally asked myself and others in the industry. These questions included, what is big data? How come no one can explain it well? Why do I need, do I need some technical expertise or experience in order to understand what big data is? What does it do? What does big data actually do for me? Is this just a trend? Will it pass? Is this something of a fad? And who's using it now? And are the results good? These are the questions that I asked myself and I asked others in the industry. And to my surprise, it was extremely difficult to capture consistent answers to some pretty simple questions. And as any emerging trend, there's a number of noise factors that get involved. And it almost had a paralyzing effect, whether we should explore big data further or not. Rather than individually having to go through this pain yourselves, my wish today is that you'll be a step ahead of the curve, empowered to explore new big data opportunities, and be armed with some education around what big data is all about. This webinar will be focused on removing some of the basic educational barriers around big data, and I'll present a few relevant industry examples and I hope you'll gain a better understanding of what big data opportunity represents to you and your business. So let's start with a simplified definition of big data. Often in the industry, we call it the 3 V's: volume, velocity, and variety. And most data scientists and practitioners of big data will agree this definition aptly describes what big data is all about. Drilling down a little bit further, let's start with volume. And I think it's really important, and I apologize if some of this information is too basic for some of you, but it's really important that we align on the nomenclature and history of data volume. So a quick history about data volume using familiar storage devices and media types. In the early 1970s, we were introduced to personal computers and the respective storage devices. Here we see floppy disks of various stripes and colors, which for some of us will have a deep nostalgic effect. The floppy's capacity to store data reached about 1.44 megabytes as the most common volume size in the mid-80s. In the mid-80s, we also were introduced to the CD, great for music and larger files. The common capacity to store data grew almost 500 times for the average consumer, so from 1.44 megabytes to 700 megabytes. The next leap forward really came with DVDs in the mid-90s, almost 7 times larger than CDs, and fundamentally initiated massive change in a number of different industries, such as the movie and music industry. Now comes to the early 2000s and today. USB flash drives proliferate. They provide us increased capacity, a lot of portability. Today, who doesn't have a few gigabytes of flash drive readily accessible in terms of data storage volume? In early January of this year, Kingston actually announced the introduction of a production-ready, consumer-ready 1 terabyte USB flash drive. Now, it may cost you up to $2,000 to purchase this, but it's likely equivalent or larger than your current laptop's capacity, all in a thumb drive. Again, compared to DVDs, the largest USB flash drive are over 200 times the capacity of the DVD. Every email, every image, all of your Microsoft Office documents or text files for the past half dozen years could possibly fit on this little USB flash drive. So to quickly summarize the increases in data volume over the last 40 years, we've gone from 1.44 megabytes of a floppy disk to 1 terabyte of the largest USB flash drives. On the left, each increment, kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, is essentially 1,000 times larger than the preceding measurement. So 1,000 bytes equals 1 kilobyte. 1,000 kilobytes equals 1 megabyte. 1,000 megabytes equal 1 gigabyte, and so on. So what's big data volume? What's the category? What size? How much data are we talking about? So let's say you have a typical USB flash drive that holds 8 gigabytes of storage capacity. That's just under 2 DVDs worth of data. 1 petabyte would actually equal 125,000 8 gigabyte flash drives. Now, if you stack these on top of each other, assuming that each are about a centimeter tall, you'd have a stack much higher than the CN Tower. So a petabyte, is quite a big amount of data. Next comes the exabyte, and that's 1,000 petabytes, or 1,000,000 terabytes, equivalent to 1,000,000 personal laptops per se, assuming every laptop holds a terabyte. For context, one of the world's largest employers is likely Walmart, who employs about 2 million people. So collect every single laptop from every employee at Walmart, all their files, all their emails, all their pictures, and you have about 2 exabytes of data volume. Now, this is where we get into some of the mind-blowing numbers. Zettabyte, it's essentially 1,000 exabytes, 1 billion terabytes. And for those who are curious, the level after zettabyte is yottabyte, which is 1,000 zettabytes. Now, it almost sounds like we're talking in a foreign language, but all this to say, 40 years ago, we commonly talked about kilobytes and megabytes. 20 years ago, we commonly used gigabytes. In the last decade, terabytes has been a common vernacular in our ability to describe data volume and size. And now, a decade later, we expect the common nomenclature for talking about data volume to be in the petabytes and exabytes. Now, if history is any indicator to future trends, expecting a 100 times increase or even 1,000 times increase in data volume should be expected. So we're seeing this exponential growth, and this is really where big data sits. This is the territory of big data. And perhaps we've made previous concessions on what data we should store. Those conversations are becoming less and less relevant. It's no longer the topic at hand in terms of identifying what data we shouldn't store and what data we should store. I suggest the new question is really about what data is most useful knowing, assuming that we're storing everything. Every click, every location, all ambient data captured in any digital interactions across any channel, across all devices, mobile apps, social engagement, system-generated data, or consumer-provided registration information. What data can provide us the strategic and competitive advantage to deliver more value back to our consumers? How can we begin to effectively monetize the massive amounts of data and drive ongoing real-time insights from this data? These are the questions that we should be asking ourselves today, rather than what data should we be storing. And I think the new sets of questions are quickly becoming which tools, which applications or platforms will enable efficient automation and optimization opportunities to capitalize on these emerging technology innovations. So that wraps up the quick intro to data volume, a little bit of history, and hopefully now you know the size and territory of which big data sits. Let's talk quickly about velocity. Velocity is really an indication for the need for speed. Naturally, with all this data, processing power and new systems are required to tap into the volume of data we just described. Here's really where map-reduced or distributed file systems come into fold. In comparison, if you've ever defragmented your personal computer, you likely have seen the bits and bytes of how files are saved on your hard drive. As I promised, I wouldn't go into the technical details, but I'll just summarize this section to say that there are approaches to store and access the big data volume that are new and emerging. And you may have heard of Hadoop, which is an open source software for reliable, scalable, distributed computing from Apache that really enables you to store data efficiently in the cloud. So here are some key highlights. This is the technical essence of big data: map-reduced and distributed file systems. It's much faster than the traditional way of saving and accessing large data sets. And it really is so fast that new possibilities we previously thought impossible are now well possible. So moving on to the primer on big data, variety. Now, I just wanted to touch on this really quickly, but as we move into the industry examples, you'll see the different data variety that we're talking about with respect to big data. You'll hear a lot when you talk about big data in terms of structured versus unstructured data. And I think the key takeaways are this. In a traditional database architecture, data modeling, data mapping approach, every single data point you want to store has a place. It has a table, it has a field in a structured database. Big data technology really enables you to store and access data without the need to structure every single data point in advance. Now, while that sounds like a promise too good to be true, I would caution that generating insights and actionability from unstructured data is an area where most startups and large enterprises are currently investing in. It is exactly why there's so much buzz and investment today, and new solutions are springing up constantly. There's certainly a groundswell of options today with respect to tapping into unstructured data. So let's move on to the industry examples, just really bringing big data to life. And before I jump into the specific examples today, I wanted to share this great infographic by Bloomberg Ventures, which highlights how many players by different stripes in the big data stratosphere. So it's no surprise that it's a challenging space to navigate as a marketer and to understand who are the right players, who should I be contacting, what's the application, and how do I start playing in big data. So here I just want to touch on a couple of examples in the industry. The three examples will be Factual, Persuade, and Sprint. And each of them have a unique approach to data volume, data velocity, and data variety. So let's jump into Factual. Factual provides global data for powering web and mobile apps, mobile advertising, and enterprise solutions. And for marketers, there's certainly a good laundry list of logos at the bottom in terms of their client base that are currently using Factual. The visual, which is essentially from their website, describes how and what they do. So if you start at the bottom left corner of the visual, you'll see a cloud, and Factual aggregates billions of facts and terabytes of data on a regular basis from data partners and across the web. They do the heavy lifting of scrubbing, cleaning, and structuring the data, which then goes into an engine, which then provides you as a marketer or business owner millions of data points to which you can draw insights, effectively plan marketing campaigns, or use as an ongoing feature and functionality of your programs themselves. To take this a little bit further, what I really like is how they package the information from the big data space in an interactive dashboard, so you can visualize huge amounts of data into insightful graphs that may help you make smarter decisions about where to market geographically and inform you on what to do based on customer demographics and how to communicate via creative and messaging. On a side note, the founder of Factual was an individual who actually built what is now known as AdSense, which was purchased by Google some time ago. The next example is one I've had the pleasure to work with hands-on and personally a number of years ago, and their approach is quite different. They have a solution which essentially scores your customer transactional data and your customers and identifies those who are highly influential in terms of influencing their network to make purchase decisions. This is done at a topical or categorical level, and they have a number of case studies on their website. Individuals in your database essentially are quantitatively scored via the Persuade Influencer Value Order. And while I can't share specific results, I'd like to say that I was extremely impressed with the results. They outperformed fairly advanced predictive models and response models built by CRM statisticians. So this is how big data comes to life and how it could work for you. The last industry example you may have heard of before, but I wanted to highlight it because it truly represents to me the most tangible and quantified results in terms of incremental performance. Here we're looking at Sprint, and they leverage enterprise data strategy to reduce operational inefficiencies, gain valuable customer insights, and their solution provider on the big data side was ClickFox. ClickFox was part of an overall solution for Sprint, which effectively used big data to reduce a number of different factors for their inbound call center. What they ended up measuring was an 11% increase in customer satisfaction from 74% to almost 85%, 200 million in cost savings and retained customers over 13 months, and 1 billion in cost savings from 50% reduction in CSR headcount. Now, those are pretty phenomenal numbers that any company would be proud to boast of, and I think going back through the 3 industry examples, it really is how can big data service your needs and your specific marketing strategies or operational goals. So just to close this off, there's some other notables I've listed here in terms of their logos. Some include the obvious larger players, some include startups that have really taken big data applications to the next level. And in terms of industry investment, startups are regularly commanding millions of dollars in venture capital funding to build novel applications leveraging big data. So some closing thoughts. I think a couple of questions that are relevant to ask ourselves as marketers. Will big data tip the balance between failure and success? And really, will your organization be ready to adopt available technology and maximize the use of big data in whatever application that's relevant for you? And to close, here are a handful of observations over the last dozen years I personally wanted to share with you. Number one, I think companies today seem to have this unique situation where they have disparate databases that don't talk to each other. Most brands continually desire deep insights and the type of customer insights that provide real advantage. That's never going to go away. Tools and technology that are designed with simplicity and ease of use will likely continue to succeed. And I've worked on large enterprise tools as well as smaller, more nimble tools, and those that have great user experience and are relevant for marketers will continue to succeed. Few organizations are fully harnessing the variety of data they have in their stores, and it's often due to technology constraints. And I think those technology constraints, on a good news standpoint, are quickly being removed, and those barriers are actually not as relevant today. And then finally, measurable performance and return on investment will increasingly drive budget decisions from top to bottom and bottom to top. So I think when it comes to ensuring return on investment, being able to measure the impact of your campaigns and initiatives, big data does provide a number of options for you to do that in a more sophisticated way that never was possible. So I just wanted to thank you all for spending the time in this webinar. I really appreciate, and I'm honored to share with you my understanding and education. And I'll likely hand it over back to Emily to go through any questions.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much, David. That was great. So we did have some questions come in during the webinar, so we'll answer a few of them now. And again, any questions that we don't get to right now during the webinar, we will answer on the Vigorate Digital LinkedIn page later today. Okay, so the first question. How should an organization decide if outsourcing is their best option for big data collection and analysis?
Great question. Thank you. I think there's a couple of components here, but ultimately, once an organization identifies what their strategic objectives and imperatives are, it's really about understanding what those business obstacles may be in order to reach those imperatives. And I think deciding on building something in-house or outsourcing will really be dictated by what problem we're trying to solve. There are a number of solutions out of the box or outsourced that really do provide an immediate answer and that are highly relevant. And I think, as business-minded folks and as corporate citizens, we really do need to make a thorough evaluation and business case of what the opportunity and what the potential opportunity is, and then find the right solutions rather than looking for a solution out of the box or outsourced and trying to fit it into the business context.
Okay, perfect. So the next question, what is a reasonable goal for an organization to strive for if they've just begun to collect data?
Great question again. I think in terms of reasonable goals, I am fundamentally about action and results. And big data or data and analytics are a means to achieving actionable results, better decisions, and improved incremental returns. And so I think the goal on data collection and capture should be oriented towards measurable return, whether that means as a product company selling more units, as an operationally minded division, reducing inefficiencies and improving operational effectiveness. And then if it's really about insights and insight generation, the quality and depth of insight should absolutely be one of the goals to set as you're capturing data.
Okay, perfect. And the last question we'll ask right now. Who in the organization should own this? Would it be IT, marketing, finance?
Great question. I think there's a couple of ways to approach this, but to get it really right, it certainly needs to be something that's championed from top to bottom. And so across divisions, there needs to be a belief that big data and the solutions that you explore can fundamentally provide you that competitive and strategic advantage. And so I wouldn't say that a particular department necessarily owns that. What I would say is that, certainly if you are just beginning to explore big data in terms of your corporate life cycle, it really is important to identify certain leads and champions of that. And, marketers today are always looking for new ways to reach customers and really capitalize on data assets to make better decisions. And I think, marketing certainly has a natural position to champion. I believe IT certainly also has a role in defining what is possible and from an infrastructure place, enabling marketers and sales folks to do their best, empowering them with the right tools and technology.
Okay, great. So thank you very much, David. That was an excellent webinar. And I want to thank everyone for attending. Don't forget our next webinar in the Demonstrate series will take place on May 22nd, and it's going to be all about Facebook contests and engagement. For more information about this upcoming webinar, you can register for our Demonstrate webinar notifications on our website at vigoratedigital.com. Thanks again, and have a great day.